one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ryan is out this evening. So we'll open up with public comment.
Richard Burke, I just wanted to come tonight to say that last month I had a comment on the Notify Me section of the town website that seemed not to be working. I wasn't sure until tonight when I walked in who made the difference, but I wanted to come and say thank you because it changed. I have received agendas for everything that I indicated I was interested in, and I'm sure that probably holds true for a number of people in town. So I always say, who checks the checker? I'm thankful that somebody did, and I understand that may have been Danielle who made it happen. So personally, I thank Danielle as well.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll close out. Under new business, fee schedule adjustment, Mr. Bruce Woodruff.
That's me. Good evening, everyone. I don't know if you've got any paperwork on this or a little narrative blurb, but I mean the bottom line here is that the public notice portion of planning board and zoning board fees for all applications that will require a public hearing, in other words, noticed in the newspaper, has risen a lot over the last probably 18 months. So the facts of this are that the land use office is not asking for an increase in any of the other fees, just that public notice fee, which is really supposed to just pay for that. The problem is that if you don't know what the fee is going to be when somebody drops off an application, there's no way you can figure out the fee and get it paid. The problem there is that the application to either a zoning board or a planning board is not complete until all fees are paid. And we've been kind of running behind thinking about the right word I need to use, but we've been behind the 8 ball on this one for a while now. And you know, the planning board rolls its eyes, I think, and the zoning board sometimes doesn't ask, but the bottom line is that we're not meeting statutory requirements. So what I'm suggesting is that we set the public notice fee at $150. Right now, the fee is set at the fee itself plus 10% for admin costs. So the fees have been running right around an average of $135 or $136 every time we have to put a notice in the newspaper. When you add that 10% to that, you're right at $149. So that's this is a way to allow the land use office to be able to figure out the total fees so that the applications can be complete and the fees get paid up front, and it also eliminates that step of having to prepare a separate invoice to send to people too. So there's a lot of positive things that will come out of this. If you have any questions, I'm ready to answer.
Nope, self-explanatory.
I totally agree with you.
Thank you.
Do you want me to make that motion?
Certainly.
So I'll make a motion to increase the public notice fees for both planning board and zoning board of adjustments to $150 plus a 10% administrative fee effective immediately. Well,
Bruce,
What?
the 150 was including the
150
administration.
would cover
Okay,
without the
okay.
10%
So just take out the less.
If
okay,
Right.
so all right, so just the
Just
150.
the 150.
Okay, so for so minus the 10% administrative fees, so it'll be 150.
I'll second it. Okay, moving on. Townhouse Stewardship Committee CIP request, Mr. Catwick. Oh.
Thank you. My name is John Cowick. Let they work on that now. Okay, here, I'm here to follow up on the townhouse two-stage heating cooling system. I think you're all familiar with it. I mean, we've been batting this around for quite some time. And the reason why I'm recommending strongly to do this, because they get more usage throughout the year, spring and fall, to use the building. And by the way, it's plans to be completed this year. We're up there every day now and trying our utmost to make that commitment, but it still might be a little bit tight on some of the big items. Now, this item here that I'm looking for approval on is for the heating, cooling systems. And the reason why I'm doing this and asking to come from the capital reserve fund, it actually has got nothing to do with the restoration. The restoration today still stands, there's no tax dollars used after spending over $200,000 on the building. So I think it's a real benefit to the town to put this system in. I'm holding up my electrician now. We got the walls apart to do the wiring for it. We've had it apart now for almost 6 months or 8 months. But if we decide not to, I will close it and move on. But really give it some serious thought, I'd appreciate it. Have you read all the documentation that I handed to everybody, so I don't need to repeat all that? You've seen the quotes from 2 different vendors. There is a little catch here that I want to share with you. You probably read it when you saw the planning board's meeting minutes. And when I say catch, it's not really a catch, but they approved, basically, for you people to approve and disapprove. And they had some good thoughts and interest in it themselves. And they mentioned about a Mitsubishi system instead of the one that Mr. Curry is. You know, I've done some research, there's no question about it. The gentleman that made that statement, he was absolutely right. So I'm going to say, you know, I'm going to favor, because I've asked Mr. Currier to do it. He hasn't had time to do it yet, because there's no time, you know, left at the end of the week. But anyway, if he went with it, probably the cost would be pretty equal between that and Strojan. Strojan is a company that we contract for all heating for the town. So I made a point to go to them, so the numbers are pretty equal.
So Strojan's is the 14,000, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And you have about 1,800, $1,700 in the townhouse repair and restoration.
Yeah, this
Are
has
you
got-
going to use that?
This has got absolutely nothing to do with the restoration funds. You got the copy of the warrant article in front of you? Warrant article should be in the package. $50,000 balance.
Yeah, the balance here is
I'll read it to you.
50,000 even. Yeah?
Article 10, establish municipal building capital reserve fund. There's a balance of 50,000 sitting here now. I'll share with you, I've talked to the highway director on this, where he's responsible for capital buildings. He has no problem if the board of selectmen agree to put the units in.
So what's the difference between, what were you saying, the difference between Strojan's
The
and,
make of the unit, Angie.
okay, and Courier? Because, I mean, so Courier, you said, I mean, did you talk to Courier?
I absolutely did, right?
And what, and he,
He's trying to put the package together now. I talked to him last Thursday.
so is that the quote that we got, is from him that we're using?
That's the quote, but it's a different make.
He's-
That's why I want to explain that up front.
Okay. I just was a little confused,
Mitsubishi is a much better unit.
Yeah,
right,
it's more expensive, Andy,
okay.
which would probably almost balance out. So it goes back to when it comes to selecting the lowest bidder, you know, he's probably gonna be, they're both gonna be probably equal. And then the rule of thumb is usually we always go with a in-town business, but I'll leave that up to you people.
I mean,
So who is, Courier's putting together a new quote using the Mitsubishi, you said?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
we just don't know what the new quote is though, right?
No, and I would say that at the stage we're at right now, I'd recommend to go with the highest one for approval. And give me the authority to decide.
I mean,
We have a meeting Thursday.
Yeah.
I see with Ryan, we'll have a full board. And that, do you think Mike could have that to us for Thursday? We have a meeting Thursday night here.
I definitely can ask.
Okay.
You know?
So why don't we do that, and we'll
Okay.
just wait and table it until Ryan's here also?
Okay, yeah.
And get the full quote from Mr.
Yeah.
Courier, just to have it.
Yeah.
I agree, I think the Mitsubishi is a much better unit. I think that long-term, it's a better way to go.
So, do I need to get on that agenda or
No,
Thursday? Okay.
You can just,
yeah,
on
we'll
there.
just, yeah, well,
Well, what time is that? Six?
that one's starting at 5, so, but we've got,
probably in between, if you came at say 6:15, you would probably be good.
I mean,
Unless you wanted to take it up right
Prior.
at the beginning.
why don't we do that, so that way we're not tying you up just in case.
6:15?
No, why don't we go,
You
4:45?
do 4:45 if you would have to repost,
Yeah.
but we can do that.
I'll be here. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
All right.
Okay, moving on. Cemetery Capital Reserve Fund request, Mr. Gatwick.
Okay, now that this one here is the tank in the Mill Cemetery that's now town-owned. Has been leaking for years, and the bottom has got some serious leaks because of rust. I gave it a lot of thought because I can estimate probably as many as 25 calls in the last 2 months. And why isn't the water there? Because they want to water the plants or whatever, clean stones, the public. And so I said this, we can't afford to buy a new tank. We can't afford it this time. I'm talking me, everybody really, to invest, maybe $6,000 or $7,000 for a well, and then another probably $300,000 or $400,000 run a pole of electricity to get to the pump to run the wells. So what I did was I put some thought into it, and I said that, and I reviewed it and had a contractor, with the same contractor quoted here, review it with me, and we decided that we could get probably another several years by taking the existing tank and flipping it 180 degrees, turning it. And I gave you some pictures that they show you what it consists of. It could be strapping it and probably turning it in increments. You couldn't do it all at once. And then, but if we will succeed doing that. And then the next thing is a plumbing thing that we're gonna have to bore holes through it and weld new fittings in it because it's going 180 degrees with all the fittings. We're lucky in this case, the fittings are all gone because somebody stole them all because they probably needed some junk at the junkyard, I'm sure, but we can replace all those. And then the other thing in line with that, also with that quote that you got in front of you, there is 3 trees there that's got to be cutting down. You see them, they got the spruce worm in them. And last year we hired Urban Tree Company to put down the whole back lot line of the cemetery with the same condition. Now, I put on the estimated quote,
Oh, he didn't have it yet.
and what I did was I estimated a high cost when I said $3,000. And I've got the quote from the vendor, actual quote now in my hands. And I received it this morning at 8:30. He comes up with a price of $1,650 to do what my request is. I would still like to keep that above that, maybe $2,000 because of all the pipe fittings and stuff I'm going to have to put on the tank after we turn it. half the faucets in the cemetery have been broken off by the public. I'll have to replace all those, so I'm looking to be comfortable for another $400 or $500 on top of that $1,650 to do a thorough job.
So you think 2,500?
I think I can do it less than that, Andy. I think 400 or
How about-
500 will take care of it.
What's
How
that?
about,
Oh, no.
oh, gotcha. How about 2,100, is 2,100, 2,150?
Okay, go
Said
ahead.
4
Yep.
or 5?
That'll definitely work.
All right, so I'll make a motion to approve a withdrawal from the Cemetery Capital Reserve Fund in the amount of $2,150 to turn the tank, remove the trees, and replace the fittings at the Milton Mills Cemetery.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now, I'm sure that you all looked and saw what the balance was in there. There's a balance sitting there today that
$30,036.
$10,674.
Which one is
The
that?
$31,000 is expendable trust fund.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
and we'll see you Thursday evening. Next up, oops, you're bounded to turn. Chief Kraus.
Good evening.
I know,
Good
Chief.
evening.
So, Ernie received an email about the parking issues in Milton Mills. I had also been watching some of the parking issues in Milton Mills. I think it's something that we as the town have to deal with. I think the easiest way to fix it is to paint lines in the mills and paint spots in the mills, both on the side of Main Street over by Ira Miller's and the Historical Society, and then also over by the post office side. Once the store that's over there, Banker Brothers is already over there and is already doing very well. If the Albert's Auction Building on the corner there sells, and that turns into a secondary store, they also have no parking in that area as well. So when people start lining up there, if we have no line spots that are parked in either one of these areas, people are just going to park wherever they want, and it's just going to cause a very large traffic issue in that area. One thing that we've already seen with Ira Miller's opening, not a fault of their own, people are just parking wherever they want. So we have people parking right in front of the store, blocking some of the intersection, people parking within 5 or 10 feet of the stop sign. We have to have a conversation with them, get them to move their cars along. They move them forward, but they're still not moving them into areas that are really that appropriate. If we line it and then we update the ordinance to cover those line spots, just like we have here in downtown, it'll make it easier for both my officers and for anyone who may come, residents who come through that area, or anyone else who wants to come through the area to visit that area.
Nope, I agree.
Yeah, I totally agree. So we need to run this by Pat, is that what you?
I think
Yeah.
that's a conversation, we have to have with the public works
Okay.
director, but I know that, Ernie, you received an email on this
Yes.
already, so if we have that, it's already hitting his desk, it's already
Right.
in my office as well, so I think at this point, we need to be in front of this and try to take care of it as soon as we can.
Nope, I agree.
Before we get more business into the mills, and we have too many businesses there, and then
Not enough
we
parking.
don't have the ability to fix it because we're too far behind.
Well, me personally, I'm fine with delegating Ernie, you, and Pat to decide on the lines, and so this doesn't have to wait 2 more weeks, and you guys can just move forward with whatever you think is going to be suited best for the mills.
I think we just need to have a project, a plan, and I know where you now have a resident questioning it, we have to have a plan to correct it.
Nope, I
Yeah.
agree.
So you can just move forward and,
Work on that.
yeah, thank you.
While we're still on parking, it's not a parking issue in the mills, but I was notified by State Department of Transportation that we do have a parking complaint downtown as well, in front of Sentimental. There's the 2 spots that I had given you guys a heads up. Well, Aaron, you a heads up last year. Andy, you weren't here last year. I'd given you a heads up last year when we were dealing with the parking in front of the dam. That they were probably, at some point, they were probably going to get a complaint about a couple of those spots. They got a complaint from a resident about those spots. They contacted me. I explained to them that it can be a blind spot. The building can be a blind spot. When certain types of vehicles parked there, it can be a blind spot. We have not had a lot of crashes there. We have seen a huge increase in traffic over the last probably month. For some reason, everybody's getting off the Spalding and they're using 125. Fridays and Sundays, we're seeing a big increase in traffic for that reason. They're getting off the Spalding because the Spalding's a parking lot between 4 and 6 on Fridays and 4 and 6 on Sundays. So that is a bit of an issue with parking there. When they come out and want to look at it, I already told them I'd meet with them and we'll have a conversation, but after that, the conversation may come in here on what plan we're going to have to do to fix that, whatever issue they see fit. Obviously, DOT controls where we can put the signs and where we can put the parking spots. We just enforce what we're allowed to enforce through the ordinance agreements.
Right.
The other thing that came up were the signs that are on the Pizza Nut building.
Yep, I had a call
So,
about that.
I know when we had the conversation and you guys voted to repeal the ordinance that had been put in place, because we had the conversation that the ordinance wasn't legal and wasn't
Correct.
enforceable. You guys had that conversation, you had the previous town administrator was supposed to send a letter to the Pizza Nut to tell them to take those down. I don't know whether the board knows whether or not those were supposed to be taken, whether the letter went out.
Correct. Right.
But I know that was part of the complaint
Right.
that was sent to DOT.
So we'll
Signs
ask
are
the,
those?
There's signs on the outside of the Pizza Nut building that say 2-hour parking, business parking.
Oh, okay.
so if you wouldn't mind maybe following up with that? Thank you.
What's that on that?
All set on that?
So the second thing I got on the agenda for is we have a lot of ordinances that are really old. Many of them are not, in my opinion, in appropriate format or proper format. Some of them are just handwritten, lined paper that are not even actually attached to another ordinance, and yet they're in our ordinance book that any resident can come in and look at, and then some of the residents think they're enforceable. We actually have 2 ordinances that say adopted on the top of them that are actually for a completely different town. And they actually say that town's name on it and then say adopted on top of it. So unfortunately, we have residents coming in thinking that, like the noise ordinance, for example, that's the biggest one that we get calls on. Some residents think there's a quiet time in town, that is 10:30 at night till 7 a.m. is quiet time. There is no quiet time in town. The ordinance is amplified sound only, and it can be called in at any time of day. But it is only for amplified sound. It's not for guns, it's not for fireworks, it's not for any of those types of things. And so I think we need to have a sit down, work on traffic ordinances and those sound type ordinances. Those are things we can correct without having it go to the vote in March.
So
We can correct it and then just have a public hearing so that everyone can come in and voice their concerns to you if we make drastic changes. I'm not looking to make any drastic changes. I'm just looking to update, get them signed by the current board, and put them in an appropriate format.
So we hold a workshop. I think that's something that I personally would like to be involved in.
Mhm.
You want to? Why don't we
Mhm.
I'd
plan
like
on
to have a
setting
workshop
up
with the
a
whole board.
workshop and get that rolling?
How many ordinances do you think there are that need to be updated?
Probably 10 that I saw. I don't have the full list from Michelle. I'd like to get the rest of them from Michelle just to look through all of what she has and make sure that there aren't more that we need to either repeal back because they're not enforceable any longer, or ones that we can update that she has that for some reason I don't.
Are you?
While we're, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, are you proposing to have staff work on them first and come to the board, or bring it right to the board and start from scratch there? And,
Well, I was going to work on them and then come to the board and
okay.
have the board
Workshop.
review them after that point. I just figured it'd probably be easier to do it that way.
Yep.
instead of sitting in a meeting and trying to do a workshop on 10 or 12 ordinances. It'd take us 4 or 5 hours just to get through a couple of them. Just
Yeah.
correct what needs to be correct. The ones that need to just be voted on to go away,
Yep.
vote on go away.
Okay.
Yeah, just
Well,
make sure you have the original ordinance,
Yep.
yeah, so we can see what the corrections,
Yeah.
yeah. That'd be
While we're on
helpful.
ordinances, the dog warrant,
Yes.
how are you?
I have not received the list yet because the town clerk tax collector sends out one last letter to all the residents after you guys sign the warrant.
Okay, and she's been,
And I don't know
okay.
where that number is after that
Alrighty.
one lot list.
Just ordinances made me think of
Yeah.
it, so,
No, they'll all be served by August 31st.
alrighty.
We're not, my officers we're not gonna give warnings this year, just like we didn't last year.
Right.
When we come to your house for the unlicensed dog, it's gonna be a citation when we come out to see you. Like, you've had plenty of time to license your dog. So unfortunately, when we come to see everyone, it's gonna be a citation first offense this time.
And tax deeded?
So tax deeded properties, we have had an issue with people breaking into some of the tax deeded properties, squatting inside the tax deeded properties. In the last 2 weeks, we've had quite a few calls for attempted burglaries in houses around the tax deeded properties. And then we have found people sleeping inside of the tax deeded properties, and we found the one here on Dawson Street had been kicked in. There was an air mattress inside. We can see that they had been sleeping in there for a little while. So I wanted to know what the board's plan is on these properties. We've resecured that one, sealed it up with the help of the town crew, but we have a lot of other tax deeded properties that we need to have a plan on, because unfortunately, we're seeing an influx of people moving into town that are either homeless or just moving into this area, and unfortunately, these are perfect spots for them to do things they shouldn't be doing. Drug activity, you name it.
Yeah, no,
Currently, we've been, one of the things was the auction on the properties this fall to get rid of them. I mean, in the meantime, keeping boarded up and patrolled. Ernie got a price for 565 White Mountain Highway to have that fenced off to deter. I mean, it's only going to keep honest people honest, to be truthful, and we all know that. But, I mean, hopefully it will be somewhat of a deterrent to keep people out of that property anyway. But I think for the time being, it's just, right now is the monitoring and keeping them boarded up.
So a request I would have is that we be able to, we ask the Public Works Director to post all of the properties with no trespassing signs.
Mm-hmm.
That way, if we find anyone on the properties, my officers can deal with it right away. Then we're not just removing them and telling them to move along. We can actually have enforceability. If we find them inside somewhere, obviously we can deal with that because they're inside of a building. But if the land is posted, then we can deal with that issue. Because if they're not supposed to be on the land because they haven't come into the town to get permission to go on the land to see it because they want to buy it or something to that nature, they really shouldn't be on that property in the first place.
Did you already have a conversation with the DPW?
I wanted to have that conversation with you first to make
Okay.
sure you guys were okay with
All right.
us getting and posting
Yeah,
all of
if
those
you want.
properties.
Make a motion.
You're
Yeah.
technically the owners of the property,
Right.
so if we're going to post it, it's going to be the agent. You're going to be the agents of allowing people on it. So when we post those signs, we're going to have to be at the order of the Board of Selectmen.
Okay. I'll make a motion to go ahead and post all of the tax deeded properties in town with no trespassing signs to give the chief and his men the full authority to act upon anybody trespassing on those properties.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No, and moving forward, yeah, I mean, we want to unload, we were gonna unload Dawson, it just came up with a,
Issue.
it's a small issue, but it's definitely gonna get hopefully unloaded, you know, this fall, along with a few others. So,
Yeah, we're hoping residents see suspicious activity and don't wait, just call right away.
Yeah.
Any suspicious activity in their neighborhood, because we've had 2 or 3 houses that were up for sale, have people on those properties. One of them was supposedly just plugging in and using the electricity on the property, but it turned into a lot more than that. So those are some of the problems that are happening as well. So we just need people to call us when they're seeing suspicious activity.
Most
And some of these properties too, they have wood lines and rock walls that push up to the back doors. So you may not see that they're up to the back side of it and
Mhm.
pulled off the
Right.
door and kicked in the back door. Those type of problems. So
Alrighty.
So is there, what do you want me to do about the fence at 565?
I'll make a motion to go ahead and have the fence installed as soon as possible.
Where's that revenue gonna come from, just so we know?
Unanticipated.
Can you guys speak up? I'm sorry, I can barely hear you guys.
You know, we're talking about the fence to go around,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Let me come back to you Thursday night and I'll identify a line that it can come out.
Alrighty.
okay.
All right.
We're talking about putting that fence up in front of 565 White Mountain, around 565 White Mountain Highway. Because again, it's one of the places, like what the chief talked about, how it goes up into the woods. So if somebody comes in from behind, you may not know that.
So, I mean, thankfully, we've whittled down most of the town-owned properties, so that have structures on them. The properties that are just woods, we're never gonna be able to keep everybody off of those, and if it's just woods, it's not a huge ordeal. We know the town forest, we are keeping an eye on that, with the camping and some of those issues out there, we've already kept an eye on those, and we're dealing with those types of issues as well. We just don't want to see, the last thing we need is a structure fire in one of these abandoned houses because someone's in there trying to stay warm in the wintertime, or drug activity, or even worse, a sexual assault or something like that in one of our town-owned properties because they're inside of them. So we'll get the signs up. I'll talk to Pat and we'll do our best to get the signs up. That way we can deal with these issues.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, chief.
Moving on to old business. The town auction property status.
Yes. You have a breakdown in your packets. The closings have all occurred with the exception of one, just because we're waiting for a balance of $36.55, and that's the property on Middleton Road. And I think that's the logistics, because the law firm is in Laconia, I believe, and the buyer is from Milton, right? Yeah. So we're trying to get that straightened around, and it might be faster for us to shuffle it back and forth with email and more convenient. So we'll see what we have to do on that.
Alrighty.
And you had the ones with the building permits that were due. There are 3 of them. The deadlines for those fall on different days of this month, the 22nd, the 22nd, and the 26th. None of those have been pulled at this point. But we will keep an eye on that as well as far as the deadlines.
Alrighty. Excellent. Thank you. And the 2020 budget status.
Yeah, well, the Budget Committee had talked about, well, actually, it came from staff first, and was there a way to maybe shorten the process a little bit and do kind of a joint presentation to both the Budget Committee and the Selectmen on 8A? And talked with staff, and everybody was supportive of it. And the one day that seems to work for everybody is September 14th. Budget Committee discussed it, and they were looking at starting at 9 o'clock in the morning. And Danielle had put together sort of a draft schedule, and we'll have to go through that and finesse it. But essentially, it would start at 9 o'clock. We'll get the schedule tightened up on everything and probably end somewhere around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That will give everybody an opportunity to go through and give the complete budget presentation in front of both the Budget Committee and the Board of Selectmen. And of course, it's a public meeting, so anybody who's interested is free to come, and hopefully this will work out.
Sounds good. Thank you. Any other business?
Back to the budget real quick. Did you see this, I know this is very preliminary, but did you see the presentation schedule?
I haven't seen the schedule. I have, what I've done today, I revised the procedure a little bit. And I want to put it before the board. I sent this to the chairman. It's just something that I feel it will work if we follow it. As for the presentation, I haven't seen that part of it. And I didn't get a preliminary one. But I was leaving it up to the town administrator with that. Oh, okay, thank you. Now, I got a copy, I'll give that to the chair. That's gonna look fine. That's exactly something I was looking for from Ernie, and I didn't think I'd get it this quickly. I will pass it on to the committee. That procedure is almost the same thing as before. I just added a little bit to it, and I think it's gonna work fine. We're gonna talk it over at our meeting, and we're gonna send you a copy, and maybe if you see something that needs to be tightened, touched up, we'll be fine with that. It's just something that we can start trying out,
Sure.
okay? So you should get it after our meeting next week. I'm gonna ask the chairman to send it to you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so we'll put it back on kind of for the
Yep.
first meeting in August. Any other business?
No.
Okay, approval of minutes. For June 17th, 2019. BOS meeting.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with it.
You want to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion to accept the June 17th, 2019 Milton Town Hall Board of Selectmen meeting minutes.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. July 1st, 2019.
Yep, no, I read these, I'm fine with them. I'll make a motion to, hold on one sec, yeah, I'll make a motion on the the July 1st, 2019 Milton Hall Town Meeting, Selectmen Meeting minutes.
I'll second it. Expenditure report.
Thank you.
I think we're doing pretty good on the expenditure.
It looks like it's been cleaned up some. too.
Yeah,
It's been cleaned up a little bit. There's a little bit more to do.
Yeah.
actually, it looks a lot better than from last
Last month.
month, yeah. So, yeah. Okay.
Any conversation on that?
No?
So we'll open up to public comments pertaining to topics discussed this evening. Anybody have anything? Ms. Lynette?
I just have two things. It's very refreshing when our new TA responds directly to the public in the meetings. It's very nice. Thank you very much. And also for you guys getting the fence around that building down there. Nothing bad, you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cowett? Please be careful of our microphone.
The whole thing's gonna come.
Be careful this time.
I was going to suggest maybe if you wanted to talk from the back of the room now.
No, the budget thing that you just brought up, I'd like to make sure right up front this year, I'll donate all the hours it takes, and I would like to start thinking about setting up a workshop with the Board of Selectmen. The Budget Committee's been familiar with it. I've given them copies of what I'm talking about, and I'm sure they must be somewhat up to speed. But I'm sure that I can be a help to everybody, because the cemetery business is new to the town. The town never had a public cemetery, and now we do, and it's a good thing for us. And I'd like to spend some time with you. I've already put together a handout that's probably got 25 or 30 pages to it. And the reason really why I want to do this, I don't want to go through the episode we did last year with people taking it upon themselves, and it's okay, you know, but to set a budget of 31,000 when we always use about 6 to 10,000, and that, of course, that had a big impact when the people walked in the voting booths. We all know that. So I just want to make sure we're all on the same road and understand. When I say a number, it is the number, because I got experience of 57 years in that cemetery, and I think I'm pretty close. I'd like to share it with everybody, so if you could keep me in mind.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Seeing no further public comment, close public comment. Thank you. Arnie?
I don't really have anything else. You have another interview with legal counsel on Thursday. I'm going to take up clarification of Mr. Catwick's issue on Thursday when you get those new prices.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that really is it. I mean, we've been working on just cleaning things up and trying to catch up on some of the things that have, you know, backed up in the interim that you had from January to May, I guess. And that's about it from me.
All righty, thank you. Mr. Rawson.
No, I just want to say hopefully everybody's enjoying this summer. I rode by the town beach this past weekend, and there was really no room to park down there, and that's a good sign. People are enjoying the facility, and it is beautiful down there. And if you go on to the website, the town website, there's always different functions going down there. So hopefully people can check it out. And I just want to, hopefully everybody's having a good summer.
And I'll attest to that because it was so crowded down there Saturday morning. We had our Recreation Commission meeting there. We were asked to leave so they could have the parking for paying customers.
I do have a question for you. I don't know if anybody out there knows, but there is a pictorial history of Raymond out there called the History of, Milton, excuse me. History of Milton and the Farm Museum. It was put together by Sarah Ricker and in 1998 or 9, and it was published by Arcadia Publishing Company. And I actually bought a copy of it. I know the library's got a copy of it. But if anybody knows where I can locate Ms. Ricker or any relatives, that would be great, because I just need permission from her to be able to publish any of those photos on the website. And I think that would be fantastic because there's some really nice photographs in there. What I did in other town that I was in was I published those photos with the exact caption that was under them in the book, crediting the author and telling people where they could buy a copy of it. So, everybody seemed to like that. So I'd like to do the same thing here. And any photos that people have, historical photos that you'd like posted eventually, I'm working on it. I'd love to get those from you. So.
Thank you. Mr. Catwick, do you know Ms. Ricker?
Yeah, it's those books were published through the Farm Museum, I believe, and sold by the Farm Museum. The track history of her, I would think that would be possible through the Farm Museum.
Okay.
And I may have some data beyond that. We have, just to share with you, we have several books written by different people in the town, not just Mrs. Ricker, but there's probably 4 or 5 more that did similar.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Maud Lasky, there's a whole 5 or 6 of them that did the same thing. For example, the Maud Lasky is one that did the complete history of Milton Mills. Every single bill in there, the families, the whole history of everybody,
Oh, wow.
and all the companies that were functioning in the early 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll get all the information I can together for you, and I'll share it with you.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
I'm sure Larry Brown knows Miss Ricker too. Because he's associated with the Farm Museum, so
Okay,
he'd probably be a good person to contact.
great. I'll do that.
And that's all I have, so motion to adjourn?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone.
I don't think I can very much if you are the parents.
Thank you, that was
Thank
very
you so
sweet.
We can do those on Thursday, I guess.